Thanks for tuning in to Howe's Things, a podcast from the David A. Howe Public Library. I'm Nick Gunning. Happy New Year! My guest today is Don Dannemann. Now, Don is best known as the original lead singer and guitarist of the band The Cyrkle. Starting in 1966, The Cyrkle would release 3 albums, Red Rubber Ball, Neon, and the soundtrack for the film The Minx. Their top 40 hit Red Rubber Ball is one of my all-time favorites. It was written by Paul Simon and Bruce Woodley of The Seekers. And this one for me is just every time it comes on the radio, it puts me in a good mood. I feel like I've had it on every version of a mixtape, whether that's dating back to cassettes or CDs or now just, in my playlist. This is a song that I always keep coming back to. Same with the follow-up single, which was Turn Down Day. Both of these are just ones that I feel like have never really gone out of the public consciousness, and so it's exciting to hear and talk about those songs even now. Outside of their work in the recording studio, The Cyrkle would go on to tour with the Beatles in 1966 and would remain on the bill with the Beatles through their final live concert at Candlestick Park. In recent years, the band has had a bit of a resurgence when it was reformed. Don Dannemann and Mike Loskamp from the early days are back, with Pat McLaughlin, Mike Schoaf, Don White, and Scott Langley rounding out the group. So listen into this conversation I had with Don back in December of 2020. Well, Don, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to me today.
Great to be here.
Now, I've got to tell you, the Cyrkle's Red Rubber Ball album is one that I've just had my entire life. I don't know, it just materialized somewhere, I picked it up at a secondhand shop or, a record shop or something, but it's one that I've been listening to just for as long as I can remember. So it's a real pleasure to talk to you today.
Well, thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah. I wonder if you could take me back to the early days. I'm a little curious about the very first time you ever heard the song Red Rubber Ball, because I've heard that it wasn't love at first sound for you. Is that true?
No, it was not. It was not love. It was, we were at the point where we had just gotten our Columbia record contract.
Okay.
And we were looking for songs to record. And, we were playing around with lots of stuff. Our at that time, new producer, John Simon,
mm-hmm.
Young producer at Columbia. And we would go into his office, and he would have stacks and stacks and stacks of 45 records, demo records to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
And, we'd listen, back and forth. And bandmate Tommy Dawes, at that time, we were hanging around in the village, in Greenwich Village in Manhattan. And he met and became friendly with a fella named Barry Kornfeld.
Okay.
Who had a publishing company with Paul Simon.
Oh, okay.
And Tommy heard Red Rubber Ball sung by Paul, just a guitar. It was like a guitar voice demo, is
mm-hmm.
the term. And he listened to it and thought, maybe that might be interesting to try.
Yeah.
And, so he presented it to us. And everybody thought, yeah, let's try it. My own feeling about it was, okay, cute. Sure, let's try. I didn't get that it was going to be any great shakes, but yeah, sure, let's try it. And it came together. I mean, of course, it's a long time ago, but I do remember rehearsing
mm-hmm.
in some place that was not Columbia Studios
okay.
in New York. I have a vague picture of the room, but I don't know what building it was in or whose house or whatever. And we were playing around trying to come up with the arrangement. And
mm-hmm.
everybody was, chipping in. How do we do this? How do we do that? And one thing that I remember very specifically about that rehearsal is we're trying to come up with what can the instruments play besides just the chords. And there's 2 main lead instruments on Red Rubber Ball. One is the organ, and that was John Simon that came up with that. That was John Simon, and we were trying to figure out, well, maybe what can the guitar do besides regular chords, rhythm guitar? And I was playing it and holding the guitar and thinking, I'm not getting anything. Nothing's coming out. And I handed the guitar to Tommy Dawes, who was mainly playing bass, but also he was a good guitar player,
mm-hmm.
and he would also play guitar. And he just spontaneously played what ended up to be the lead guitar licks, which I played. Once he played it, then he handed it back to me. I said, "Oh, good, I can play that, yeah." And that goes. I should have known, and then back into the song.
Yeah.
And so those two lead instruments were a key in that song being a hit, because when the record first comes on, you immediately know what song it is.
Yeah.
In a second or two when
Oh, yeah.
when it comes on, it's very identifiable.
Well,
and no, go on. Yeah.
No,
yeah.
I mean the track is just so interesting because, just like you're saying, there's so many different layers. There's so many different things happening in there, and it's not like this was the only version of this song. I mean, of course, there's a Neil Diamond version and others, and whenever I hear those, I'm always disappointed because they're so much simpler than what you guys were able to accomplish in that thing. With when the organ comes in, you're going to have a good time, and then it just keeps going in unexpected ways, both with the instruments and the harmonies. So, I mean, it's just it just puts you in a good mood as soon as you hear it.
Yeah, and I did not appreciate this at the time. I only came to appreciate Red Rubber Ball late in life.
Okay.
Actually.
Wow.
At the time, it was like, wow, we got a hit record. How cool is that? But as far as the song goes, yeah, it's cute. That's what I thought of it. Somewhere in the mid-'80s, I think it was, Columbia Records gave a license to a small record company called Sundays.
Okay.
That deals in re-releasing oldies.
Okay.
And so they got the license to release our material. And they asked us to comment. They put together, I think at the time it was actually a cassette. It was actually a little bit before CDs.
Okay.
And they sent me a cassette, and they said, we'd like your comments. And at the time, I was very busy in doing commercials. When the group broke up, I formed a music production company, and we did mainly advertising work for ad agencies, both in New York and around the country. And I really wasn't that interested. It was like, been there, done that. But they asked for the comments, and I hadn't listened to it in a while. So I happened to be on a plane by myself, and I thought, okay, let me listen to this, and I'll comment. So they released our stuff. It was roughly chronological.
Okay.
As we recorded it. So Red Rubber Ball was the first thing that came on. So I'm on the plane with a Sony Walkman, if you remember.
Oh yeah.
And I put on headphones, and my head is down in my lap, and I'm listening, and on comes Red Rubber Ball, and I actually had an epiphany. Like, oh my God, I now understand why this song was a hit. And it's just as we were just discussing, the guitar and the organ, when they come on, it's a very unique sound unto itself.
It's unmistakable.
Exactly what it is. It really works. It musically, it's very pleasing. Just works. And then I come in, I start, I should have known you'd bid me farewell. Bandmate Tommy Dawes joins me, starting with the harmony. And our harmony, in days before you could auto-tune or anything like that, the harmonies were just right on.
Yeah.
And it was a wonderful blend. And I realized that, we really sound like the Cyrkle.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a very unique sound.
Yes.
Nobody else sounded like that.
Yeah, it's really true.
I mean, yeah, we sounded that way. So it really deserves to be a hit.
Yeah.
Now, fast forward to our current time period now. The band, so I was retired from my commercial career, and I got a call from our keyboard player who replaced the original keyboard player, Earl Pickens.
Okay.
It was late 60s that Mike Loskamp joined the band, and he was playing in a band. It was called the Gas Pump Jockeys in Columbus, Ohio, And he had been playing in bands ever since the group broke up. He never stopped. He had a regular job, but never stopped playing in bands. One of his bandmates, a fellow named Pat McLaughlin, who also played in bands his whole life, but had a real job. He was a sales manager at AT&T actually, and did quite well. He's retired, just continuing playing in bands. And he thought, hey, why can't we be the Cyrkle? Here we got Mike.
Right.
And a booking agent of his, a friend of his, said, why don't you get one more guy? And yeah, you could be the Cyrkle. I mean, many oldies bands, they don't have the whole band.
Right, yeah.
Sometimes it's just one or two or none,
Mm-hmm.
actually. So anyway, they reached out to me. So that started the band Revival. And I can talk about the band Revival, but that's not the subject we were on. I'm talking about Red Rubber Ball specifically. So I want to get back to that. But it involved the band Revival,
sure.
Hence my bringing that up. So here I am realizing that Red Rubber Ball, it really had a unique sound. I guess it really did deserve to be a hit. But now, in the band Revival, when we play, and I get comments on Red Rubber Ball, mainly from meet and greet after the concerts. We always have meet and greet where you sit out at a table and we sign autographs and sell records and pictures and all that sort of stuff. And people come up with me with all sorts of comments
sure.
about Red Rubber Ball. And the comments go from a big range, actually, but they kind of go from, Red Rubber Ball was my first 45 record. We played it to death.
Yeah.
We just wore it out. We played it to death. Another one that I found pretty interesting was a guy comes up to me and he shakes my hand. He goes, "Thank you." I say, "You're welcome. Why are you thanking me?" He says, "I want you to know that Red Rubber Ball got me through my divorce."
Oh, wow.
It's such an uplifting song. I would wake up in the morning, it came on the air, and it got me through my divorce. So it was such a bad time, and this uplifted me. The morning sun is shining like a red rubber ball. And a third one, and this was one specific comment, but it has happened over and over again. A guy came up to me also after a concert. He says, "I want you to know I'm a Vietnam vet," and he had his hat on.
Oh, wow.
Vietnam vet.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, we had a little battery-operated tape recorder that had Red Rubber Ball on it, and I can't tell you how many battles that song got us through. And we actually teared up and hugged.
Oh, yeah.
It was very meaningful. And so additionally, realizing the musical level of it, why it deserved to be a hit. Another thing that I only realized in this recent revival is that Red Rubber Ball was more than a cute song that had good musicality and became a hit. It actually was one of the premier uplifting anthems of the 1960s.
Yeah.
And it meant so much to thousands of people that I'm only finding out in these later years, and I'm honored to have been a part of, having an influence on thousands of people, some of whom now I get to meet and hear about them during our revivals. It's a great experience.
I imagine it would be. I mean, just the fact that something you did 50 plus years ago has had this effect this whole time, and is still, is still resounding in people's hearts and minds all these years later. I mean, that must be amazing.
Yeah, it's truly amazing. It's just a wonderful experience.
Well, I get what you're saying, too, because the song really is about coming out of a bad situation and starting a new chapter, which is a really uplifting thing that I think, regardless of time and place, that's something that most people can relate to. And that topic, I think, is kind of unique for songs that were contemporary with it.
Yeah. So, once again, honored to have been a part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's go back even earlier. Where did you grow up?
I was born in Brooklyn, New York.
Okay.
Lived in Brooklyn until I was 12 years old, when we moved to Eastchester, New York, which is a suburb of the city.
Mm-hmm.
My mom tells me that when I was about 10 months old and she's diapering me, and she was humming Little Brown Jug.
Okay.
Just a simple little brown jug, da, 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 little brown jug, man, I love you.
Uh-huh.
And I hummed it back to her at 10 months old. So
Okay,
she kinda
starting
knew I was
early.
musical.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess at the time I was probably I'm thinking this is 1955.
Uh-huh.
I got a transistor radio for my birthday day, and I'm just playing with the stations. We're sitting on our back porch in Brooklyn, and I came across Alan Freed's original rock and roll show from that era. And I don't know if you know it or not, Alan Freed is the guy that coined the term rock and roll.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, and one of the main DJs of the time that just, big name. Anyway, so I'm listening to, I came, and I didn't know him at the time. I just playing with the radio. So there I come across on WINS in New York, Alan Freed's Rock and Roll Show. And the first song that came on was a song called Story Untold by the Nutmegs. Now, people that are listening to this, I'm sure, would not have a clue what that is. But it was a really down and dirty, not really dirty, but I'm just using that expression,
Yeah.
doo-wop song. It's real doo-wop.
Uh-huh.
And I hadn't heard that before, and it just captivated me. And I remember missing my favorite TV shows because I kept listening to this. And it just got me started to the point where, I got to do this. I just need to know how to do this.
So were there musicians in the family?
Actually, yeah, there were. My mom played piano.
Okay.
Not professionally, but her brother, my Uncle Sam, played woodwinds in the big band orchestra.
Oh, wow.
Actually, yeah, he was a professional woodwind player. I think his main instrument was clarinet, but he played them all the woodwinds.
Interesting.
Yeah, he played in the Army band during World War II and went on to play in big bands.
Wow.
Yeah, and he got to a point where the family had a business, and he had to make a choice. Am I going to stay playing with big bands, or do I go into the family business? And he chose the family business.
Okay.
He couldn't turn it down.
Yeah.
But, yeah, he was a professional woodwind player.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Anyway, so I had taken some piano lessons. We then moved to Eastchester, and I moved on to guitar lessons.
Uh-huh.
Very influenced by Elvis. I think it was really cool to hold a guitar. It was almost more for image,
Yeah.
So my first, let's call it gig in high school.
Uh-huh.
So here I am. I had a guitar and an amp. I was only playing for myself.
Sure.
But our next door neighbor, who was a friend of mine, was in a band, and their guitar player, his amp broke.
Oh.
And he just asked me, hey, Don, can we borrow your amp? Because Nicky's, his amp broke. And my mom suggested to me, hey, Don, why don't you tell him you'll loan him the amp if you can come and during their breaks you can play?
Oh, very clever of her.
Thank you, Mom.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. So it's a great memory that I have.
Yeah.
And I have it just sort of in my head, a snippet of time.
Mm-hmm.
So the band played, and now they take their breaks, and now nobody knew that this was going to happen. And they were not really a rock band. They played more standard stuff,
okay.
I think, if I'm recollecting. Anyway, so I get up, and I now start playing Buddy Holly kind of stuff.
Perfect.
Like
yeah.
that. And I still remember when I started playing, I have a vision of the people. Now they're sitting around at their tables at this dance, and they look at me like, wait a minute, what is this? Like they didn't quite understand what was happening, and then all of a sudden they all get up and start dancing.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it was just great. It was a really nice moment.
Well, thankfully your mom was as shrewd as she was.
Yes, and God bless her. She's still alive today. She's 98, and she's hanging in there.
So I assume you continue to play through high school, and then it's college where you really sort of like click with the band and other guys, right? That's kind of where it picks up again.
Yes. So in college, let's see. So here I'll give you try and give it pretty quick, but get the salient point.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So off I go to Lafayette College. Now this would be the fall of 19 1961.
Okay.
Fall of 1961. At a freshman mixer, there was a band. It's interesting. We have a theme of playing during the breaks.
Yeah.
So, okay, at a freshman mixer, there was a band, a hired band.
Mm-hmm.
And during the breaks, a couple of fellow freshmen got up and started playing. And they were playing rock music, the kind of stuff that I played.
Okay.
So I'm standing there with a friend of mine, a new friend, that a fellow freshman, and we're looking at these guys playing, and he knows that I have a guitar and amp and that I play, and he says, "Don, you got to go play with these guys. This would be really cool." So we ran up to my dorm room. We got my guitar and amp, and we ran down. I ran over to him, and "Hey, can I play with you guys?" "Yeah, sure. Let's see what we can do." And it was one of these magic moments where we realized, wow, we really jived.
Mm-hmm.
This was, and it was typical songs of the day. Some slow doo-wop songs, Everly Brothers, Buddy Holly. We harmonized immediately. We were able to harmonize.
Oh, nice.
And so they wanted to start a band.
Uh-huh.
The guys were, by the way, so it was Tommy Dawes.
Uh-huh.
So that's our, bandmate Tommy Dawes.
Yeah.
Original keyboard player, Earl Pickens, who became a doctor and is recently retired from a very successful career in medicine, surgeon.
Oh, interesting.
And Jim Maiella, who was our original drummer before the Cyrkle.
Okay.
And so anyway, so we're playing, and they said, "Oh, we got to start a band. Are you willing to be in the band?" Now, I didn't want to be in the band.
Really?
Because I wanted to, but I didn't want to. And the reason I didn't want to is because I had my high school girlfriend who was still back in Eastchester.
Ah.
And I didn't want to play in bands on a party weekend where,
right.
I wanted to have my girlfriend, you know. So, and I said, I don't know, but I did practice with them. I said, well, let's practice and we'll see what happens. Anyway, Christmas vacation came, and my girlfriend broke up with me. Had a new boy. I was really heartbroken.
Sure, at the time, yeah.
I did. When I got back after Christmas, I told the guys, I said, "Well, look, I'm broken up. I'm free. So if you want to have the band and get jobs, yeah, I'm in." So our first job. Now this is actually sort of funny for me. I'm not sure if your people listening to this would care one way or the other, but I always thought that our first job was worked out and sort of gotten together by keyboard Earl Pickens.
Uh-huh.
And I actually talked about it on the air, on an on-air interview, how Earl got us our first job. And funnily enough, it wasn't even at Lafayette, it was at Lehigh, down the road, But I get an email after this went on the air from the original drummer, not Cyrkle drummer, but the original drummer at Lafayette, from Jim Maiella, who happens to live in the area of where that was. It was Long Island.
Oh, okay.
And he says, "Hey, Don, it's not a big deal, but I got to straighten you out. I'm the one that got that first job."
Oh.
So we had a laugh about it.
Yeah.
I emailed him back. We had a laugh about it, and I asked Earl actually too. I said, "Hey, you remember that?" He said, "Yeah, I think it probably was Jim that got it."
Uh-huh.
But anyway, we got that, and that was the beginning of a very successful college band career.
And what name were you using at this point?
We didn't have a name, and somewhere shortly after we were practicing and all, one of the guys just came up to me and said, "Hey, our name is the Rondells."
Sounds sturdy.
Yeah, and I thought, okay. I mean, I didn't love it, but I didn't have anything better. So
yeah.
Sure. So we were the Rondells, and we played all through college. Now let's see. After sophomore year, Jim Maiella had his girlfriend decided he was not playing in a band anymore because he was going to, he didn't have time to play in the band. He was going to go into business, whatever.
Okay.
So we replaced him with I guess it would have been end of sophomore year, starting junior year, somewhere in that time frame. Marty Freed, who is in fact the Cyrkle drummer.
Okay.
And Marty Freed was a year behind us, and we heard he was a good drummer, and he could sing, and that was important because we did a lot of harmony. So Marty became the drummer, and we became the band to get for your fraternity party.
Okay.
At Lafayette.
Nice.
Yeah. So here we are, spring of '64.
Okay.
Lafayette has what they call Interfraternity Weekend,
Okay.
IF Weekend, twice a year. It's a big dance for the whole school. They hire a orchestra, like a legit big band orchestra, and a rock band. So the orchestra was the Tommy Dorsey Orchestra, led by Warren Covington, and we were the rock band.
Okay.
And it was really cool to be the rock band.
Yeah.
Okay, now this is when the Beatles were, 1964. The Beatles are flying high.
Oh yeah.
We knew all that early Beatles stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We were very admiring of them, and we learned it. So we put on a Beatles show.
Uh-huh.
And we let everybody know. It wasn't formal advertising, but we just put the word out. We're doing a Beatles show.
Okay.
We bought long-haired Beatle wigs.
Nice. Yeah, you have to.
Yeah, and we did all those early Beatles songs. We did them, and everybody went wild over this. It was also another great moment in our career, actually.
Yeah.
Okay, so now Warren Covington, who is leading this Tommy Dorsey orchestra, he was really impressed, and he came up to us and he said, I wonder if you guys could be a part of my orchestra and step out and do this rock stuff.
Oh.
And we thought, well, I guess, sure, we could try it.
Yeah.
So anyway.
It's creative. It's a creative idea.
Well, yeah. Now, we tried it. And he had a gig coming up at the Steel Pier in Atlantic City, and it was during our spring break. So we tried it with him, and it was not our style of music, so it didn't really work out.
Okay.
But anyway, we shook hands, and it was it was all fine. But there we are in Atlantic City, and it's spring in Atlantic City, and now Earl was going to be off doing an intern, which would have helped him for med school.
Okay.
So he wasn't available. But Tom, Marty, and I thought, let's see if we could play as a trio and get a summer job.
Okay.
And we did. We ended up at a place called the Alibi on South Carolina Avenue, right off the boardwalk in Atlantic City. I have no idea if it's still there. I suspect it's probably not, because this is before all the hotels, with gambling and everything. Anyway, we played. We did very well. And we did it again, this time with Earl, actually, in the next summer. So this is now summer of '65.
Mm-hmm.
All right. End of summer of '65, we're all ready to break up and go our separate ways. In walks a gentleman named Nat Weiss. He walks into the Alibi, and he hears us, and he introduces himself after hearing us, and he says, "Hi, my name is Nat Weiss. I am a divorce lawyer, but I am also a good friend of Beatle manager Brian Epstein.
Oh, geez.
And we are forming a management company here in the States, and I think you guys are really good. So, get in touch with me. Maybe something can happen." We had been approached by others before, and we didn't really believe it. Anyway, off we went. Earl is in medical school. Tom had, I think, 6 months to go at Lafayette. Marty had another year to finish up.
Okay.
And I am now working for my dad in the sheet metal factory,
All right.
in Eastchester. And I thought, and Tom, Marty, and I were continued playing just on weekends, occasional weekends, back at Lafayette as a trio.
Okay.
Because Lafayette was not a bad drive. It was about a 2-hour drive. Could do it easily.
Yeah.
So they're there, and I'm, 2 hours away. So we were still functioning. Anyway, I called up Nat. He gave me his card, and when I called him, he remembered. "Oh, Don, yeah, how are you?"
Wow.
So, okay. Anyway, he says, "Why don't you come down?" He gave me a date, which was, like a few days, coming up. He gave me a date and a time and an address. he says, yeah, come down to this place. Some friends are having a party. Come down and I'll introduce you to Brian.
Wow.
Really? Okay. So I take a buddy of mine. We go down. It's a walk up one of those small buildings on a side street on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. Walk up, and we're standing around. He's not there. Finally, he walks in, and I walk up to him. Okay, Nath, how you doing? Oh, Don, yeah, good to see you. Come on, follow me down. We walk back down a flight of stairs to the street, and there's a limo parked on the street.
Okay.
Now, I want you to picture a very grand gesture, beckoning, like with his hand, he opens the door and he beckons me into the car.
Okay.
So I go in the car, he sits me down, and damn, I am sitting across from Brian Epstein.
Oh my gosh.
And well, that's what I felt.
I mean, what's crazy about this? It's like it's just a series of these like small little things that could have gone, one way or another that keep adding up to putting you like in a limo with Brian Epstein. It's an amazing set of circumstances.
It is an amazing set of circumstances how things fall into place.
Yeah.
When I think back. And I think, oh God, what if that didn't happen?
Yeah.
What if this, there's a feeling of like, yeah, but it did. I can't change it. It really happened.
I mean, what if you hadn't got dumped by your high school girlfriend, right?
Exactly. All sorts of things that could have made a difference.
You'd be the sheet metal king of Eastchester right now.
Maybe. I don't know. Anyway, so there I am sitting in front of Brian, and I'm trying to be cool, so I get to shake his hand, and here, this is going to sound like I'm really bragging, so I just need to set it up. I'm a good guitar player.
Okay.
I'm not fabulous.
Yeah, I've heard the records. I would agree. You're good.
Yeah, good. But I'm not Eric Clapton, I'm a good guitar player. I'm not fabulous, and I'm a good singer for the level that I sing at. It's kind of a light kind of voice, and on that, yeah, I am good. But am I great? I don't know, but anyway, so I think of myself as I'm good, moderately good.
Yeah.
Nat introduces me as we shake hands. Nat introduces me, Brian Epstein. I would like you to meet Don Dannemann, one of the finest musicians I know.
Wow.
So I go to myself. I'm trying to be really cool. Anyway, so I say to him, wow, Brian, thank you. It's great to meet you. We're big Beatles fans, and, it was great to meet Nat, and we hope maybe we can get something going. And Brian, now I'm going to imitate Brian in a way that probably doesn't do him justice, but he says, he was very gentlemanly.
Uh-huh.
And, said, oh, Don, it's lovely to meet you. Yes, Nat has spoken very highly of you. And, yes, perhaps we can get something going, so you stay in touch. Anyway, a couple of little exchanges back and forth. It was pretty short. And then, just as Nat beckoned me in, he now, with the same gesture, he beckons me out. Opens the door, beckons me out. And so now I am now standing on the street, and I picture the scene as picture a video camera behind me.
Mm-hmm.
So you see me kind of silhouetted against lights, but I'm looking the other way, so you're seeing my back. There's the limo, and there's some, street lights. It's a side street, no other cars except cars parked, but, no traffic. The limo slowly pulls off into black, fade to black. And that's my video sense of this moment.
Well, that's the ad man in you setting the scene, right?
Oh, maybe. Yeah, maybe. And, the funny thing is, everything I did was audio, not video. But, I still have that video in my head. Anyway, so the next thing is I call Tom and Marty at Lafayette, and I tell them that, what happened. So this, of course, got us really excited. And what we did is we set up kind of a makeshift recording studio with equipment that we had. Tom and I each had a tape recorder that we could use, and our amps and our PA mics, that we'd used. And we recorded several demos in my basement in Eastchester.
Now, were you writing songs at this point?
Yeah, there was definitely one, if not more, songs that we had written.
Uh-huh.
Somewhere we were writing songs. Anyway, so now armed with these demo recordings, I made an appointment, and I got to see Nat in his apartment. Also, it's on the Upper East Side. He had an apartment in a high-rise. And the funny thing about that is, I mean, it's just one little piece of trivia that I find amusing. I don't know if anyone else does. The day that I had the appointment with Nat was the day of the entire East Coast, or much of the East Coast, had a blackout.
Oh.
And go back in your history, and you'll see it. You'll see. And everybody thought, "Oh my God, the Russians are attacking."
Yeah, well, sure. At that point, yeah,
it was kind of scary. So obviously, I didn't go down that night.
Uh-huh.
We rescheduled a couple of days later.
Wow.
And so I went down, played them the demos, and here's another little thing that I get a kick out of when I played them the demos. Now the demos were pretty good on their own, but stereo headphones at the time were comparatively new.
Uh-huh.
And most people had not really heard stereo headphones. So I brought my tape recorder down with a pair of stereo headphones, and I was prepared to wire it into his stereo system.
Yeah.
But as I'm doing it, I say, "Hey, Nat, look, why don't you just listen like this? Here, listen to these are stereo headphones, and you get to hear it kind of better." So I think there were two things that happened. One is he had never heard stereo headphones before, so that's very impressive by itself when you first heard it, if you hadn't. And the other is the demos were pretty good, actually.
Do you happen to remember any of the songs that were on the demos?
The only one that I actually remember was a song called "Money to Burn," which we did record.
Yeah, and that's one of your originals, though, isn't it?
Yeah, that was an original.
Yeah.
Tom and I.
Yeah. Yeah, I've always liked that song. That and Big Little Woman. I always love those songs on the album.
Oh, okay. I don't remember if that was one of the original of that demo, but like I said, the one that I remember specifically that was one of several songs was "Money to Burn."
Yeah.
Anyway, I hit play, and Nat is now hearing for the first time the audio coming through these stereo headphones, and I see his face kind of light up and look up at the ceiling, like as if he's looking up, like so. What he got was, "Hey, yeah, this is good. I think we can do something with this." So that got him to the point where he then began to book us in clubs in New York.
Okay.
Got us to work, and that got us to the Columbia record contract with new young producer John Simon, who was interested, and essentially that got the ball rolling. So now we're starting to record at Columbia Studios, and you just heard me talk about Red Rubber Ball, how we got that, and rehearsing that and recording that.
So I mean, but what a surreal turnaround that must be, to go from basically just being sort of a part-time weekend band and like keeping your day job to be, in the orbit of Brian Epstein and the Beatles and in a Columbia recording studio. I mean, I just can't imagine what that must have felt like.
Amazing. It was amazing. When I think back, it was kind of like you went through a surreal experience, and was I really even there?
Yeah.
It was just, Anyway, okay, so we're recording, and one day in the studio, and this is the early part now, so here we are now. We had signed with Brian and Nat management, and we had signed with Columbia Records, John Simon producing. We still needed a name. We were still the Rondells from Lafayette College, and we nobody had come up with a really name that we all agreed on. So Brian, who was in town at this one particular session, he comes up to me, and I'm going to do Brian again. "Oh, Don, take a look at this." And he hands me what looks like his business card.
Uh-huh.
And I see it says Brian Epstein on it. "Oh, no, Don, turn it over." Okay, I turn it over, and I see scribbled on the back is Cyrkle. I didn't quite get it. "Brian, what am I reading? What is this?" "Oh, Don, that's your new name." And if you see, it's the Cyrkle, and it has the funny spelling, and it was John that came up with it. And as you can see, John with his funny mind, he came up with let's call it the Cyrkle and spell it Cyrkle. So that's how we got our new name.
Wow.
And I get a thrill out of telling that. At our concerts, I tell this story, and it was, and my feeling level is like, "Oh my God, John Lennon gave us our name. I mean, it's a boy.
Let's talk a little bit about this first album. So, I mean, so you've got your name, you're in the recording studio. When you look at the tracks, it seems like there's a decent number of originals on there, a couple of yours, a couple, Tom Dawes. I mean, at that point, it was relatively uncommon, wasn't it, for bands to be able to write and record their own things? I mean, I know the Beatles had made a career of that, but wasn't that still pretty unusual at that point?
I think at that point it was sort of, it was both ways. It went both ways.
Okay.
Because if you think back, yeah, a lot of bands maybe didn't, but I mean, think about Bob Dylan. He
Sure.
wrote everything
Mm-hmm.
that he recorded when you do that. And of course, the Beatles, as you mentioned yourself. So that was a back and forth.
Yeah. Well, I just kind of thought, with a new band coming together the way you did, I'm surprised you had the freedom to do that. I guess I would have assumed that they would have been like, these are the songs you're going to record. These are the ones we think are going to be hits. But it sounded like you had a relative amount of freedom.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we could have done anything we wanted, but it was kind of a collaborative effort in terms of what we finally decided to record and how we did it and all of that. It wasn't like there was an actual boss that said, you are going to do this.
Mm-hmm.
None of us did that. It was all like, well, let's try this, let's try that. It was collaborative.
That's great.
Yeah, it worked out really well. So we recorded Red Rubber Ball, and then I went into the Coast Guard Reserve.
Oh, okay.
Now, this is one of those, how we just talked about how isn't it amazing how things came together?
Yeah.
So I'm going to start out by saying thank you, Coast Guard, because as much as I would have rather been out, they were really nice to me. I'm now in boot camp in Cape May, New Jersey. Tommy went on the road as a bass player with Simon and Garfunkel.
Oh, wow.
And Marty was still in school. And Earl was off in medical school. So he was sort of half in, half out of the band. Nat gets in touch with me at boot camp and says, hey, we have a chance to go on Hullabaloo, the show Hullabaloo.
Oh, yeah. It
was one of the big shows of TV shows at the time, if you can get like a pass.
Yeah.
Anyway, God bless the Coast Guard. They gave me a pass.
Wow.
I got a 3-day pass. I took a bus up to New York. The show was recorded in Brooklyn.
Uh-huh.
So we did Hullabaloo. We introduced Red Rubber Ball on Hullabaloo. And that was also, so here I am thrown into, the host was Paul Anka.
Oh, great. I love Paul Anka. Yeah.
Leslie Gore was one of the musical people on that particular show, and Peter and Gordon. So, and there we are, we were the new guys.
Wow.
And they were all very nice. We met them, and, we shook hands. They all wished us luck. So we did Red Rubber Ball, and I went, now, my dad actually drove me back. It was like way, way late at night. I think I got there just in time to wake up with everybody when I was supposed to be back.
Okay.
So the next thing that was another surreal, incredible experience was now the show was supposed to air the next week.
Uh-huh.
Well, the whole camp knew that I was going to be on the show.
Oh, wow.
Hey, this guy got a pass and he's in a rock band and he's going to be on this national TV show. So the whole dining room at night, everybody, the whole camp was like in the dining room.
Yeah.
Watching this show, and I remember praying to myself, "Oh, please, let us not have been cut."
Yeah.
I mean, I will lose all credibility.
Oh, yeah, that'd be horrible.
And I still remember watching it in black and white on the little TV that was there, and the whole room erupted. Yay! Wow! Really cool. Really cool. Really
That's
cool.
great. Did it have any meaning for you to be shooting Hullabaloo in Brooklyn, where you grew up? I mean, you're in the same place where you're humming Little Brown Jug to your mom, and here you are, 20 so years later, back, on one of the biggest TV shows in the world at the time. Did that have a special meaning for you, being back in Brooklyn to do that?
No, actually,
Okay.
No, it could have been anywhere. It
Okay.
Have been, it was mind-blowing to be there.
Well, it sounds like your turnaround time, too. I mean, you had such a limited time off and, driving back to get there just in time. You probably didn't really have much time to soak it up.
No, I didn't think much about Brooklyn. I just thought about doing the show.
Yeah, sure.
The whole thing. And also being in a bit of a fog, like, oh,
Yeah.
my God.
Yeah.
So now the next thing that happens is also Nat gets in touch with me. We have an opportunity to be on, the 1966 Beatles tour
I mean,
And
that's just insane because at this point, what, you're 2 years away from doing that Beatles cover show? And here you are, like, on the same bill with the Beatles?
yeah, right. It's amazing.
I mean...
It was the most amazing, it's like everything just fell into place. It was the most amazing thing that I still can't believe it just happened the way it did.
Yeah.
So here was what was really mind-blowing is that I wasn't going to get out of my reserve duty until too late.
Oh, okay.
And they were actually looking to replace me.
Uh-huh. Oh, wow, that's scary.
So here is the most mind-blowing thing that happened. So it was a 6-month active duty reserve.
Yeah.
And then then there's meetings and stuff down the road, but essentially you're free. You're back in society. So out of the blue, it's almost like God said, we got to figure out a way to get Don on the Beatles tour.
Yeah. And
God told the United States government to do something to get Don on the Beatles.
Well, it pays to have friends in high places, I guess.
Yeah, right. And the United States government looked up at God and said, we got this. We got this. And what they did is they changed, this is so mind-blowing to me, they changed the reserve active duty requirement from 6 to 5 months.
Oh, my gosh.
And I got out a month earlier than scheduled in time to do the Beatles tour.
I mean, that's insane. You're right. I mean, that does feel like it's like fate. It's kismet. That's insane.
Mm-hmm. It was the most incredible thing that we're actually going to meet the Beatles now.
Oh, yeah.
So the first plane ride, I tell this in our concerts because I get a kick out of this. We hadn't met him, and it's the first plane ride, and I believe it was from New York to Chicago, which was the first concert. And the whole tour is on the plane. It's a big commercial airliner. And the Beatles are behind a wall in the back. So I am sitting now 3 across.
Uh-huh.
It was like one of those standard commercial planes,
Sure.
3 on one side, 3 seats on the other side. I'm sitting next to Tommy, bandmate Tommy, and co-manager Nat Weiss.
Okay.
And we're looking back, and nothing. Are we going to meet them? Are they going to come out? Anyway, finally, well into the flight, the door opens, and there's Paul.
Oh, my gosh.
So, now we're trying to be, our whole, the way we conducted ourselves was in these kind of situations, we always tried to be really cool.
Oh, definitely. You have to, yeah.
Not like goggling fame.
Yeah, not geeking out, yeah.
Yeah, so Paul works his way up to us. You can see he's very jovial. He's shaking hands with people. He's smiling.
Yeah.
You can see he knows some people. He's meeting them again. Some he's meeting for the first time. And he finally gets to us, and Nat knows him.
Right.
Through Brian.
Sure.
Nat knows him. So he and Nat introduces us, and it was like,
wow.
Don Dannemann of the Cyrkle meet Paul McCartney. So I shake hands with Paul, and it was a couple of short exchanges. Wow, we're big Beatles fans. Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Maybe we get to hang out. Similar. Tommy Dawes meet Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
Same thing, like short little ditties. And then
sure.
he says, well, great to meet you guys. We'll see you around. And off he goes. Down the plane, disappears behind the wall. And we spend the rest of the flight discussing every one of those little stupid words that we said.
Yeah.
Why couldn't we have been cooler
right.
to keep them,
yep.
keep them there?
Yeah.
My impression of the first actual concert, first of all, we thought, are we going to be able to even play? All they're going to care about is wanting the Beatles.
Yeah.
Anyway, we played, and they loved us. They cheered, whooped, and hollered. I mean, we had 2 hit records at the time.
Yeah,
so, Red Rubber Ball was just kind of had peaked, and Turn Down Day was released and slowly on the way up.
Another great song. That's both of those songs. I feel like they've never stopped getting radio play. They just have lasted the test of time.
Yeah, they were great. So we have finished playing, and this was like one of those hockey arenas, so it's kind of long, narrow, and the stage was, of course, open, and we're on the stands just behind and above the stage, just looking right down. I'm like leaning on a railing, just looking right down at the stage.
Yeah.
And now the Beatles come out, and like I say, we had just met that quickie Paul, but we hadn't met the band yet. And my impression was, first off, they looked very elegant. their jackets seemed to be what they, of course it's dark, so you can't really tell, but they looked like sort of greenish, dark green, velvety sort of jackets, and very elegant. And they come out and they play. Of course, it's an indoor arena, so the sound is contained. The crowd goes wild.
Yeah.
And just two specific things that I remember about the crowd. The first one is, standing next to me was a lady I did not know, but I'm thinking she must have been part of the press, and we just happened to be standing next to each other.
Yeah.
Tears were just streaming down her face. It was just so emotional. The moment was so emotional that she was just kind of uncontrollably crying, basically. That was one thing. And the other thing is, picture the Wizard of Oz behind a curtain in the back with an electronic control panel that he would push a button and a seat would have an electronic shock and a girl would jump up. And just picture he's pushing buttons, bop, 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 bop. And what I saw was girls jumping out of their seat, individual girls. And now, of course, I could only see near the front, but that's what I saw. Bop, 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 bop. Just an incredible experience. So anyway, and the tour was, we did get to hang out with them. I get a kick out of John would regularly come up, when we met him, and he goes, here's my John Lennon invitation, which of course is nothing like what he really sounds like. But, so guys, have you learned how to spell yet? That's with the CYR.
Right.
That's John. George, I had a wonderful warm conversation with him just about he was still blown away by being a Beatle.
Oh, sure, yeah.
We talked about history sort of stuff. Got to play cards with Paul and Ringo one night, and that was just kind of regular. They became regular guys. We played for quarters. They didn't they didn't tout. They didn't flaunt their being rich. That sort of stuff. So it was really very nice. And the last concert at Candlestick Park, George was taking pictures. And he kind of alluded, maybe I don't know if we're going to even play in person anymore. I just want to have personal memories of this. So, that was sort of it. It was just an incredible experience. Big city, the big city, the big stadium, and we played and we did well. That was that.
It's just, it's so amazing to think that all that happened in a relatively short period of time, going from a college band to being at Candlestick with the Beatles. Just an amazing couple of years for you.
Yeah. Anyway, so let me just finish up I'll give you just a little quick sense of the revival.
Yeah. Could you tell me a little bit about, because you said, if almost 50 years later you get this call sort of out of the blue. That must have been a real blast from the past.
It was really very cool. Now, I was retired from my commercial career and just, kind of hanging out. And got a call from Mike Loskamp. Hey, I'm in a band. And, he introduced me to Pat McLaughlin, who, I call him the go-getter of the whole thing.
Okay.
It's his baby that got put together. I will give him total credit for that. So they invited me to come to Columbus, where the band is. And like I say, this is a local band called the Gas Pump Jockeys. So the bottom line is the band was really like a wonderful family. There were 5 of them. The wives were all involved. They were a wonderful family of people. They welcomed me really nicely. First, I had coffee with Pat and his wife, Sandy, who have become really good friends of my wife and I, my wife, Deb, and I. We've just really hit it off. Then we went over to guitar player Don White's house, that's where they have a rehearsal studio in his basement. And we had dinner there. It was probably pizza, typical thing, and met Mike for the first time in 50 years, which was a big event for them all. What's going to be when Don meets Mike? Well, I gave him a hug, What do you do? It was cool to see him again. And when we played, it was apparent that we could work together very well. So that all worked out.
Yeah. Well, you have to have that chemistry, I think that's the thing, what made it work so well in the 60s, the chemistry you guys had. So, for this new formation to come together, for that chemistry to be there again is a pretty great thing.
Yeah. And the first actual paid gig was in Lakewood, New Jersey. There was some problem with the Lovin' Spoonful
Oh.
at a concert. They couldn't play, and the promoter had to scrounge around and redo the order of stuff. So he took a chance on us, we became the opening act for Gary Puckett and the Union Gap. I think
great
they were
band.
the closers.
Yeah.
I know it was the Vogues and Dennis Stefano, who is the lead singer of the Buckinghams.
Okay. That's a pretty good bill.
Oh, it was a good bill, yeah. And we opened the show. And we got a standing ovation.
Wow.
So that basically started us off. And like I say, just to finish up, it was very rewarding to, number one, I mean, there's all sorts of positive things about this, but the idea that I am now 77 years old, so at that time I was 75, so the idea at my age to be able to get up on stage and rock and roll is just amazing. I'm so thankful that, my life has led me to still be able to do this. When I hear my voice coming back through the monitor system, it still sounds like a rubber ball when I do it.
Yeah.
So that, God has has let me pretty much keep my voice. And at the meet and greets, we get all these wonderful comments of, red rubber ball meant this to me and that to me and that to me. We meet people, and so for those couple of hours of the concerts, old farts like us become 17 again.
Yeah.
It's really an amazing experience, and I'm very thankful about that. So
that's great.
Let me sign off.
That's great. Well, Don, this has been such a pleasure. Thanks again for taking the time.
Okay, terrific.
Now, I know you guys had been doing concerts pretty regularly before everything was paused due to the pandemic, but I know you have a live album out there. Where can people find that? Where can they find you online?
Basically, there's the Cyrkle Facebook page.
Okay.
And the Cyrkle.com.
Okay.
We just re-recorded Red Rubber Ball and Turn Down Day.
Yeah, I've heard those. They sound great.
So new recordings of them if people are interested in that. And we also recorded Feelin' Groovy, which was the song that we actually had a chance to do and didn't at the time. So that, and another one called The Visit, which was the B-side of one of our releases and has gotten a bit of notice.
Oh, great.
So anyway, they're available if you're interested, on iTunes or any of the normal places. It's there. We will record more. So with that, I have got to go back to my non-rock and roll life.
Sure.
That kind of thing. So nice to speak to you, Nick, and thank you for asking to do this.
Absolutely. Thanks again to my guest, Don Dannemann. This was just a fascinating conversation. I mean, looking back at the steps it took to get the Cyrkle where they were, having them positioned to be in the right place at the right time, so many things had to come together just right to make all that happen. And it was really interesting to hear Don recount those step by step, because it's just, it's almost an unbelievable story, but there you have it. It's true. You heard it from the man himself. Anyway, you can find out more about the band on their Facebook page, as Don mentioned, or at thecircle.com. And be sure to check out their recent live album, as well as their new recordings of classic songs Red Rubber Ball and Turn Down Day. If you enjoyed this conversation, you might like the interview I did with Michael Nesmith of the Monkees a while back. You can find that and a whole catalog of past episodes at soundcloud.com/allthebooks or anywhere you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening this week, and I hope you have a happy new year. We'll see you next time.